Hello and welcome to Kentview Zoo. This will be my Speedbuild series. And yes, as I said in my previous video posted earlier today, these will come out on Sundays, so hopefully every Sunday, but it will all depend on how busy I am really. Because yeah, I've got a full-time job and obviously other things to be doing, so playing games, as much as I love it, unfortunately isn't what I do all the time, as much as I'd love to be able to. So yeah, so this series is going to basically be whenever I've got the chance, I'll get a video done, speed it up, and then obviously convert it to a video and add a voiceover, and then yeah, that will be it. So yeah, I'm enjoying it so far as well, because it adds, and being in sandbox mode, it allows to be more creative. Again, as you know from the franchise, if any of you watched that, the creative part of this game is not my forte. So I'm working on it, and hopefully I'll be getting there. And in the future, hopefully the videos will be a lot better quality, and it will be funny looking back at something like this and being like, oh god, what am I doing here? That was a bit rubbish. So yes, we will see, but for the moment, obviously the main part is just to get the series started. So the entrance, to me, obviously, of a real zoo, the entrance is very important, because it's where the first thing your customers and your guests see. But not being great at the game so far, it's not had too much effort put into it, if that makes sense. So yeah, I've tried my hardest at this point, although, as I say, there will be changes being made eventually. To be honest, I'll probably end up coming back and not restarting it, but changing it a lot. There are some parts of it where I've done and I really like, and there's some parts where I'm like, that needs a lot of work, especially the foliage and the sort of the decorations, if that makes sense. In terms of building a structure, I've got the hang of it, but making it look really nice is a bit something that I'm still working on. So one thing I think I might do is, as you can see here, I've just started to put some of the wooden beams, wooden planks on the bottom. What I think I might do is change it round, so it's the wall is wooden beams, and then at the bottom is just a bit of brick, just because I think it looks quite nice. But I'm not sure, we'll see. I think it does sound quite nicely having the little beams at the bottom, the planks at the bottom, sorry. So for the moment we'll leave it how it is, but in the future I might change that around. But yeah, I'm just, as you can see here, I've just put in the staff and the information centres. So as the guests come into the zoo, they come straight through the ticket, and then they've got information centres just as they come in. I did want to have a little gift shop, so I think eventually on the outside I'll have some sort of gift shop. Obviously, when you come into the zoo, is normally the entrances and things like that, and then on the way out you've got the exits. So I might do that. Not that I think guests would use it specifically for that purpose, but I think it would be quite fun to do. And yeah, as I say, that's normally what you get in a real zoo. You come in one side, and then you come out the other side, and on the other side you've got the little gift shop which you go through. So that will be done at some point. Yeah, I had a few issues getting this flooring down, just with the terrain placement. It wasn't completely flat, which was a bit annoying, and then I couldn't get these back into the grid, so I did, and it just was all skew. So I do end up just placing new ones, and but it takes me some time to figure out how to do that, so I do mess around a little bit, and then I do eventually get there. And the thing is, when I moved it there, it lifted up slightly, so there's always a slight gap underneath the thing, which is a little bit annoying, underneath the building, which is a bit annoying. But again, might come back and change that in the future, but for the moment, not too worried. I've covered it up with a bit of foliage, so I'll probably leave it as that for the moment, and then change that eventually. One thing that is annoying is when you start out and you get the guests, as soon as you move the entrances, you have the power radius, which is very useful, but makes things quite hard to see. So I always end up having to turn it off and play around with it, and I don't know, sometimes the H key, which turns it on and off, doesn't always turn it off straight away, so it takes a bit of time, but it's fine. So yeah, I do that, and I do quite like that in the end, but then, as you can see, that's where I realised it was slightly raised. You do that, and suddenly you've got the back railings on, which only comes up for for elevated paths, so I realised then, and I was like, oh no. But I left it for the moment, and then here you can see me trying to figure out how to make the inside not look like brick. In the end I did just leave it, rather than make the whole thing too walls thick, especially because if I did that I wouldn't be able to have my little bit at the bottom, but I did just leave it for the moment, and eventually I'll go back and add some decoration in to make it look a little bit nicer. So I'm just adding the sort of the main exit for where guests would come out and get into the main park, so that road will then eventually come off and sort of split out into the rest of the park. And yeah, I did really like this. On the other side I did the diagonal pieces, the blank pieces. I did like that, so I decided I would do the same on this side. I just had to move that, but again the grouping has gone all funny. I'm not quite sure why, but again I'm quite new to this game, so that's the main reason. I've got no idea what I'm doing really. So yeah, I do that. I really like that little bit there. It's almost like a little centerpiece, and I'm just scrolling through trying to find another bit of wood to put in to sort of really finish that bit off, and I end up going for these. I think they're from the base game, the plank walls. Obviously they're the wrong way around, but I just think they look quite nice like that. Yeah, so I've left that there, and now I'm adding some of these on. I can't actually what they're called. I think they're just called wooden frames in the game. Added a couple of these in just to eventually put some plants on, but not for the moment. I haven't done that yet. I only put a couple of little bits on, but in the future again I will come back and do that. So now I'm playing with the roof, trying to find tiles. I like the bricks, I like tiles going with the bricks, I think it looks nice, but I couldn't quite find the right tile pieces. And I settled for the slate in the end. I think the slate does look quite nice. It looks most like sort of traditional tiles that you get in UK buildings, in terms of what we've got available in the game anyway. So I go for that, and then I put this little cap on, and I quite like sort of the slight deviation in shape. I do think it looks quite nice, and then here I just end up going for the same thing after putting in the wooden planks, just the end caps to the gables, I think they are, yeah, just to shut it off. So now I'm looking at building a sort of a wall round, because otherwise you come in and it opens up to the whole of the map, which I didn't want. I wanted to have, there you go, there you can see me. There you can see where I've messed it up and had it lower. Not quite sure what I was trying to get out of that bit, but that's fine. I think it did help slightly, but I'm not sure. So yes, now you can see me trying to build a sort of a fence around it. Basically, the main issue I've got at the moment is you come in, you see that, and then suddenly you can see the rest of the zoo behind it, whereas in real life you don't normally get to see that. So I'm trying to make this zoo as realistic as possible, whilst sort of staying within the physics of the game, if that makes sense. So you see some people's zoos are absolutely incredible, and they look amazing, but they're just not realistic at all. You get in and you've got all sorts of things. So I'm not the most creative. I'm sure there are some zoos where I say they're not realistic. I'm sure in some places they are, but to me, in terms of UK zoos, so again, this is hopefully being based completely off the UK, so they will be as not realistic as possible, but they try to be as realistic as possible. So everything you see here will sort of be things that you could get away with seeing in the UK. So yeah, I think that's the main goal of the series, is to make it as close to a UK zoo as possible, but obviously it's not going to be perfect. So I've tried my hardest to make it as realistic as possible. And then yeah, here's me just flipping it over just to make it a little bit easier. I then realised that it's then, obviously because of that, it's slightly upside down, so let's change it, but I was a bit silly and I didn't move it high enough. I then had to move the whole thing down, and then I then realised I still had to move them higher, so I could have saved myself a bit of time, but it's okay, it's not too bad. So yeah, so that is the main part of the building done. So now I'm just blasting it out, removing all the long grass. That's the one thing I hate about the auto paint, is how it decides to paint the long grass, which is just so annoying for me, but it's fine. So here I'm looking for the, I think it's in the conservation pack, the I believe it's called the mulch now, thinking back to it now, but I couldn't find it, and I was looking at this like, oh, these grass would be quite nice, but again, it's not quite, doesn't quite fit into the theme, but I'm sure we will make some use of that make use of that at some point. And here I'm just blowing the pieces. I do like this fence from the aquatic pack, the aquatic DLC, and I'll definitely use them at some point. I didn't end up using them here, because you don't tend to see metal fences as soon as you walk into the zoo. Well, again, I'm sure you do, but the zoos that I've been to, you don't tend to see it, so I'm changing that slightly. And I'm sure I will use them later on, but not for the moment. Here I am just adding some windows. I think, yeah, a building without windows just doesn't seem right, so I've added in just a couple of windows over here on the front, and I haven't actually added them on the back, but I will do at some point. I will do eventually. I will eventually add them in on the back. Yeah, as you can see, the back's now currently empty. Now I'm just adding in a bit of staff path for the future. So that area down there, just to the right of the fence, that's going to be sort of the main staff area. So the first staff area where it's going to have all of the things. So the staff restroom, I think. What's it called? The staff room. That's the one. So it'll have the staff room, have the quarantine, have the vet surgery, everything like that, and then there will also be extra staff rooms and keeping huts dotted around the place, just to make it seem more like a real zoo. You don't tend to just have, well, instead of a staff centre, maybe not, but for the mechanics of the game, it'd be better. But for keepers' huts, you do find the zoos you go to, you do find that they have, they do have more than one area to prepare the food. So the zoo I'm thinking of, they've got the gorilla enclosure, and they've literally got a nice big area just next to that, where like a staff only zone, where they go in, you see them drop off a load of vegetables there, they go and they chop them all up and they climb onto the roof and throw all the food in from there. So that's one thing which I think makes sense as well to have, because you wouldn't want all your animals, you wouldn't want your staff to have to go walk really far along the zoo to feed the animals. So I'm just adding a little bit of foliage here just to make it look slightly nicer, so it doesn't look quite so plain really. And I think it's a start. Obviously, again, I need to come back and add a lot more, and I might add some sort of centerpiece here, but again later on I do add some trees and more in here to make it look a little bit nicer. And just adding the slight roof on here, trying to figure out which one suited it best, and I've gone for just that to match it. I would like it to come into the main roof, but it would mean redoing it, so I've left it how it is. I added the brick gable at the front just to make it seem more, to make it match up better, and at the back I did the wood because you couldn't see it, so it didn't really matter. And then now I'm just adding a few little bits in, so people can come in as they come into the zoo. I put a few benches down, a bit of seating. I do really like these benches from the New World pack. I just think they look so smart. So they will be the benches that I go around. I want to have sort of continuity around the whole park, so I've gone for those benches and these bins. Again, depending on the area, so the zoo will be split into different areas. So they'll have there'll be a sort of an African area, North American area and Asian area and so on. So there will be some sort of differences based on those, but for the general route of the zoo, which is going to be obviously the most of the zoo, there will be sort of a main path across it all to link all the areas, which will all come off at different parts. So the main sort of area of the zoo will be solely this theme, and then there will be corresponding areas for the different habitats and continents. Just to make it seem a bit more realistic. You wouldn't have, in a real zoo, you wouldn't have 10 different types of different trees. So you're never going to get the umbrella trees from Africa in the UK. But obviously, I know the animals want it, so I'm going to try and make it as close as possible to what you would get in real life. Because you've got to keep the animals happy more than anything. Also, in this series, I am going to toggle with some of the settings so that the animals don't necessarily grow old too quickly. I always have it on speed 1. As you can see here, I haven't actually paused it, which is a bit annoying because it means that I'm on end of year 2 by the end of this video. But yeah, there we go. There's a little cut there. I'm now in September year 2, and I just couldn't figure out why. But yeah, so I want to make it a bit more personal. So I want to actually know the animals, see their babies and things like that. So see their offspring and everything. Because the thing about the franchise is, you do it and you want to sort of just get on with it really. So you want to build it all up, breed them, get the conservation credits, and move on really. So you can get the bigger and the better animals. But again, that's just part of it, isn't it? So yeah. And here I am trying to figure out how to make a nice big zoo sign as you come in. And also just checking out some of the other bits. I've not seen a lot of this stuff before. I did have a look at some of the lighting, but I decided against it because I just couldn't quite figure out how. I've added a bit here by the trees just to sort of make them a centre light, and also a couple in here. I just think it looks a bit quite nice just having the trees on show. But yeah, I had a look at some of the other lightings and decided against it because I just wasn't too sure if it quite suited it really. But yeah, here I am about to make a sign for the zoo. So this will be, as you come in, there's one on both sides in the end. So you come in and you'll see it also. Here I am trying to figure out how to spell basically. And then making everything match up. So yeah, I go for Kentview Zoo and then add in a couple of little animals just to make it look a little bit nicer. And here's just me checking it was Kentview. Yeah, I'd already forgotten the name of the zoo, which is always a good one, isn't it? Yeah, and then try to make that central-ish. I know I've ended up using zeros there instead of O's, so I will go back and change that because it doesn't quite look right. And yeah, I quite like that in the end. I was trying to change the letters and the numbers, but it wouldn't let me do them all at once. So in the end, I decided I'm just going to leave it. Because yeah, I couldn't really be bothered to change them. I think they look nice how they are. And here I'm just adding some beams at the back to make it sort of for a stand, as it were. And then yeah, so that's the first one. So now I copy it, bring it over, turn it around, and put it down in the ground because it's floating for some reason. So leave it there, and I think that looks quite nice. As I say, there's a couple of little bits left, so I do put in some animals. Not animals, sorry. I add some animals onto the sign. These ones just here, the classic animal signs, because I think they just look really nice, and they make it obvious that it is in fact a zoo that you're attending and not something else. So yeah, that's the end of the speed build, and now here's a little, it's not really much of a look through, but it's a slight one so you can see some more of the angles, and you can see there's a lot of work to be done in here. But for the outside, I'm happy. All this green space I will eventually change into some sort of scenery, so whether it would be bushes or sort of grassland or something, there'll be something there. But anyway, thank you for watching, and until next time, bye bye.